Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for this part two of my sit down with my friend Alan. Last week we talked a little bit about what got Alan interested in doing the trail and the research that he did in preparation for it. This week we start out talking about stepping off on that trail and those first milestones that you hit while doing it. Then we start talking about food, both on and off the trail, and we stay on that topic for a little while. We might have been getting a little hungry while we were filming. And then Alan tells us some stories about the weather changing on him at a moment's notice. And it really drives home that fact that no matter what the weather reports say, you need to be ready for some inclement weather, especially in certain terrains. So, without keeping you waiting any longer, here's part two of my sit down with Alan. Enjoy. So we start in Georgia. The crowd's thinning out. So now we're on the trail. Tell us about it, man. Just
it's a wild experience,
when you're starting out, what's the first leg that you've got to get through to really feel like, all right, I'm on it, I'm doing it, this is feasible now?
I think there's a couple of milestones that really, early on there's lots of milestones.
Yeah. First step.
Yeah, you get that first mile, the first shelter.
Yeah.
all the firsts out of the way, and then people get out there and they put the number. They'll write out every 100 miles. They'll write it out there, So your first 100 miles is Albert Mountain, and that's a huge deal. And probably the biggest thing, I think, for me, the biggest one was getting to Neal's Gap, which is only 30 something miles in, but that's where 25% of the people that even attempt it go home.
Right. 30 miles in, my back's hurting, my feet are hurting.
You're tired because nobody's in shape for it. If you are, then you're way ahead.
Done.
And I don't know who you are.
Or I'm sure injuries happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
You start out, you're ready, you're physically capable, you can get it done, and you twist the ankle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's got to suck. Then you just, you come back next year. You don't have to take 6 months off now. You go back home, go to work, come back next year.
In situations like that, if you don't break a limb, a lot of times people just
they rehab it.
They take the time and just take care of it. I found that the people that did that typically were the ones who finished, because almost everybody that I met dealt with injury in some fashion. Whether it was early on or later in, and it might not have even been, it might have been twisting an ankle, it might have been shin splints. For some people it was getting really sick, getting Lyme disease,
Yes.
And I had a couple of friends of mine out there who got Lyme disease, and they were laid up for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and you just can't hike. And in that amount of time, your physical abilities actually start to diminish as well. So when you get back out there, you start feeling the difference.
Yeah, that physical drop off when you're laid up, sick or injured or something like that is really steep.
Right. So, it really takes a good, strong mental capability to keep yourself going forward and focused on where you want to get to. To remember that, getting to Katahdin is what you're out there for.
Right. So was that more kind of your mental state, getting to Katahdin?
For me,
then, that's the top of the staircase. Step 1, step 2, or
right.
Or did you just go, that's the finish line?
Well, from the beginning, I told myself that I was going to finish. I was out there to make it to Mount Katahdin.
Absolutely.
And for all the research that I'd done, which I think that the amount of research I did was obscene compared to what most other people had done. I'm sitting here recounting stories of old thru hikers, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that, and I'm talking about a story of something that happened on this mountain, and people are just like, why do you even know that? And I'm like, well, but but it was always in my head, I'm gonna make it. Like, I'm not going
Mhm.
home. I like absolutely am not going home
Well,
before I
this,
get to
you know,
Maine.
you're recognizing now your childhood dream. You
Absolutely.
know, so
That's it.
you take that first step, and it's done.
Right. So
You're
from the
you're
beginning,
going, you know,
we're doing it.
deaf.
Well, because you don't know, you don't know if you can make it or not until you get there,
Right.
and you don't know what's going to
Well,
happen. But as long as you tell yourself that you're gonna get there and that you're not going to stop, then everything else is kind of okay. Now that being said, I actually on on a much smaller level, like day to day, the thing that would keep me going is setting my daily goals
right.
and saying, this is where I'm going to get to, this is where I'm going to get to. Um, like feeling the sense of accomplishment and really appreciating the sense of accomplishment when I made it, say to my first 100 miles, or like when I made it to my first 1,000 miles, or like when I made it to this, X, Y, or Z states. And,
Right. And
you know,
crossing borders into states. You know.
absolutely, like all of those things, are small separately, but like whenever I put them together, it would give me something to shoot,
Right.
towards. And, and so I always just kept moving towards that, and I focused in the moment on doing that. The easiest way to do that being just going from resupply point to resupply point, because they're, I mean, that's kind of like how you stage your hike anyways,
Mm-hmm.
is get to town and get the foods you need and kind of plan how long you're going to be out for, and just keep bouncing that until I just hit Mount Katahdin, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, I can almost, the way you just say it, it's like till I hit the end, and that was it. It reminds me of the scene from Forrest Gump
Yeah.
when he's just, I think I'm gonna go home now. But yeah, so you mentioned hitting the resupply points, hitting the towns. What type of gap are we looking at in between those? Are you out there for, 5 days, or is it 2 weeks?
No.
What's your
Actually, on the Appalachian Trail, you're looking at about 3 to 4 days,
okay?
depending on how fast you hike and depending on where you're at. The longest that you would have to go would be 5 to 6 days, unless you're going southbound, because the last section is the 100-mile wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
which is just under 100 miles. But if you're going northbound, it's your last section,
Right.
and 100 miles is something that you can do in like 4 or 5 days without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Most hikers. And then, but southbound, it's what you start with. So it typically can take you longer, like maybe a week, 8 days, or something like that.
Okay.
So, so in that situation, you'll end up carrying more food. Even though they do have some people that do food drops in the wilderness now, because there are like forest roads that run through there.
All right. And they got like bear boxes out there that people.
Well, no, I mean what they'll do is they'll whenever they stage those things, you'll actually give them the food, and they'll have the container, and it'll be your name and stuff, and then they'll go out there and be out there, like you're going to be there at a certain day, and they'll come out there and they'll be there with the food.
Oh wow. Okay.
Some of them will have bear cans, but I think typically they don't do that. So, but on average, you're looking at about 3 to 4 days was about how you would plan it, because it's typically going to be about like 8 pounds of food. 8
Yeah,
to 10.
roughly. What was your caloric intake, or did you track your meals that much, or?
I tracked my meals enough that I looked at the numbers on the packages and went with the biggest one, and I didn't care what it tasted like. I didn't care what it looked like.
I don't. At this point in time, there's a particular goal, and it's not culinary.
Right.
It's I need fuel.
Absolutely.
This doesn't make me sick. I can stomach it. This is what I eat.
Hey, if it makes me sick and I can stomach it, I probably would still put some chocolate sauce or some hazelnut, put the Nutella on it, and you're feeling good.
Anybody in the military who's lived off MREs knows there's ways you can combine different things to make pudding out of MREs. Now, I do not suggest MREs for any type of backpacking because they're heavy.
Yeah, actually,
each one is about 2,000 calories, so you can probably get away with one per day if you don't need too many calories. But doing the math and how much I normally eat, I'm probably going to try to balance everything out around 3,000 to 3,500 calories a day, which like you said, oh, that's 700 calories in the
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah.
Um,
But even
so-
that's going to be under what you would actually be, what your output's going to be.
Right.
Because your average output in a day, just regular spring day going up and down the mountains, is
absolutely.
going to be, somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 calories. If you start earlier and it's colder, or if you run late and it's colder, like that's gonna run it up to where you might be burning anywhere from like 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day. I mean, you can really, and depending on how far you go. I mean, there's all the factors.
Yeah,
in
there's
there.
a lot of factors.
But on average, you're talking about like probably like a 5,000, maybe 6,000 calorie output, which you can't touch that. I mean,
No.
I've tried it.
I find it's just too hard to eat that much,
It can be.
and two, it starts getting heavy and
Yeah,
bulky.
Yeah, carrying it is really the biggest thing. That's the biggest
Yeah.
impediment to eating enough food.
And that's where I think that 3,500 calorie mark is a good, for me, I find that's a good balance with some of the meals I found that I can do to keep my weight down, the bulk down, still have a high enough calorie intake. 5 days I get into town, I can go and eat something then.
Yeah.
Make up for a lot of those lost calories, and you take a rest. Let your body rest up a little bit. You're not just going to buy stuff and get back on the trail. You spend a couple days there.
Yeah.
Let your body kind of rest and heal up. That's when you're really replenishing yourself.
Right.
So, well, that's good to know. I like that. For some reason, I had in my head that it was like almost 2 weeks in between normally, and I'm like, man, that's just a lot. Like I can't get my food weight down light enough to be a sustainable pack for that long.
Right.
So,
2 weeks is a very long time to go and carry. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't places that you would do that, but for a backpacking trip like that, because even in places like on the CDT or the PCT, like a PCT, you'll go like a week, and that's actually, from what I understand, not uncommon. The CDT, I believe a week is probably common as well. But even so, I mean, there are ways, if you do the research, to be able to like set up drops.
And you find the organizations who run the trail, and they'll have information on how they do that, and reading journals.
Right.
Find out what other people discovered. Use their expertise.
That's it.
To figure this out. So
I'm a big proponent of that. I am an extreme proponent of learn from other people's experience.
Absolutely.
Because they're sharing that.
If they're sharing it, learn from it.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe in not being the keeper of knowledge, but the giver of knowledge.
Yes.
I don't hoard knowledge. Anything I know, I am freely willing to give it out there to anybody who wants it, and that's one of the reasons why we started doing this YouTube channel. Let's see. We talked about SARM. We talked about distances between section heights, between the sections and the resupplies. What's your typical time off at those resupplies?
That's personal. It comes down.
I mean,
me personally, it was not much.
Just kind of rest up.
Yeah, early on, I took off. I took more time because whenever I went out to actually do it, physically speaking, the way that I structured myself was kind of what I do like with my regular like running exercises and stuff like that, which is to give myself like a rest day every once in a while to let my body start getting acclimated, but starting to push myself further on each stretch before I did something like that. And what I really mean by taking that rest day is by taking like a proper 0 day, like a whole entire day off, where you don't do any miles. Early on, I took more of them. I think over the course of the entire trail, I took a total of maybe 12. And I think I took more than half of those, like in the first 500 miles. At the end, particularly after I started hiking with the guy that became my hiking partner for the rest of the trail.
Okay.
His trail name was Crash. He very much was the kind of guy that's just go, 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 and he wants to do 20, 25 miles a day. He's doing more sometimes, you
Yeah.
know. So like we were kind of like a loose affiliation at times.
Right. I'll
But
catch up with you.
right, exactly. I'm like, you know, you go and do that. I'm tired, man. Like I don't care if it's gonna be raining on this dangerous stretch tomorrow. I need to sleep right now.
Yeah.
Get some food in me. But yeah, I took it earlier on to let my body actually become acclimated to the amount of work.
Yeah.
So I slowly upped my mileage until, like after Damascus, Virginia, which is right, it's like around 460 miles or so. About that point was when I started to actually kick it into gear and started doing my 20-mile days.
Body's acclimated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, harden the feet.
Right,
You know.
you've got your trail legs.
Right.
You know, hiker hunger is like, you know,
Yeah.
really starting to kick in. So you're like carrying all the food, and you know, boy, but you know, at that point, after about 500 miles, you know, that was about a month and a half in, and after that amount of time, you really have an understanding of what you're capable of and what your rhythm is. And one of the most common phrases out there is hike your own hike. And you know, a lot of people use that in different ways, but to me, like, that really, it means it's exactly what that means, is to find
Find
your
your own
rhythm,
way.
find the way that works for you, and actually allows you to be able to get up and keep putting one foot in front of the other and get to the shelter to go to sleep instead of getting to a road crossing and going home.
Right.
And doing that safely. And well, I mean, you're never going to be satiated with with the food, but you know, as undyingly, I guess, as possible.
Right. Yeah, like you said, you're putting out sometimes almost double what you're taking in, so you're never going to be full,
Right.
but you can be not starving.
Yeah. You know, I mean, typically with the food that I ate, I mean, I always focused on not even. I knew I was going to be hungry. It didn't. I'd be in town and I would, you know, it's like you'll be in town and you'll eat, you know, an entire huge breakfast. It would be it's literally called a hiker breakfast. And it comes out and it's like more food than you've ever like eaten in once, and you're just like da, 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 and you take it all in.
Now,
And
I
then,
have eaten 3 pounds of breakfast in one sitting before, so
well, then maybe maybe you're ready for the hiker life. You know, I mean, that's good. I mean, you'll do that and more, because I mean, I've seen people do it, man. I read a great story where this is on the PCT, where they went in, they got into town, and there was going to be a McDonald's, and they were like, all right, we're going to get there and it's going to be right before breakfast, so let's see how many calories we can get out of we're gonna eat breakfast as much as we can,
right.
and then as soon as we're done with that, it's gonna flip over and we're gonna eat as much lunch as we can back to back. And I think they said in one sitting one of them ate like almost 7,000 calories worth of food, including like ice cream and cheeseburgers and all kinds of big breakfast
stuff you don't think that your body can handle, but when your body's hungry, you'll
Absolutely.
be amazed how much you can pack down in
Yeah,
there.
I mean, you'll eat, you know, it's like I remember at one point in Maine where I had, like, these are literally like plate-sized pancakes, you know. It was a triple stack, and you know, and they're like fluffy, like that big and everything. So I mean, they were definitely like they would put most people under the table. And me and Crash both got them, and we sat there, dude. And I'm just like, I got like a bowl of butter that I'm just like all over it, and like half a bottle of syrup on it, and then I'm just like blah 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 blah, and I tank it down, and then I'm like, man, I actually kind of I'm gonna go grab a breakfast sandwich. Let me go talk to this guy. Like, followed it up, and this elderly couple that's sitting on the side, they look over and they're just like almost like jaw dropping, like,
how?
Like, where's the food going? You're not even that big. You're like.
It's like, no, that's why I can eat all of this.
I'm like, you don't understand. I have like 4 tanks in here now.
It's like, literally, my body's hollow, so I have a lot of space to store this.
I send everything else home. It's all stomach, man.
Lungs, I don't need those. I need more stomach.
Yeah.
So, let's get down to some of the. We went through a lot of the technical stuff. Let's get down to some of the fun things. Like, what was the most memorable? besides finishing,
Sure.
the site or the event that stands out in your mind the most? Just, I know everyone's got a different one.
And aside from starting as well. I mean,
Yeah, so somewhere between point A and point B, there
were-
had to be something, or maybe a couple things that were just like either milestones, or you round that bend on that switchback, and the view is just there. It all is, and
there were a lot of them. You know, and it really comes down to like what kind of experience. You know, one of the biggest things I'll never forget is in well, not just the presidentials, but in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. You know, they'll tell you how beautiful it is, and you can see pictures, but nothing does it justice. When you're up there on the ridges, particularly when you're on Franconia Ridge or going across the presidential range, it really, you feel like you're at the top of the world, and like everything just like is unfolded below you. We were lucky enough that on the days that we did, like when we did Franconia Ridge, it was really gorgeous. We had pretty favorable weather, considering that like the White Mountains are socked in a lot, and it did happen on some of the higher peaks, like on Lafayette. That happened. We got up there and it was gorgeous, and then within like 10 minutes, like it was clouds and wind, and we're just like, oh, let's get out of here. And the same thing happened on the presidentials. It was really gorgeous when we got up to start climbing the presidentials. We actually had a really phenomenal stealth spot up there, which was right on a cliff, and man, it was tucked into some trees, and you just walk out and it opens up, and it's just like all the mountains like right out here in front of you. We got like a really nice sunset and everything, but we saw the clouds coming in, so we knew that the next day going across the Presidents was gonna probably end up being kind of burly, which it was, especially going up Mount Washington and then coming down heading north from Mount Washington was really pretty treacherous.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially in those mountains, that weather can change in an instant.
Yeah, well, you know, and it gets really bad up there. I mean, the White Mountains, the weather gets absolutely horrific, and that's what ended up actually, you know, we had to go face to face with was going across the presidentials. We did the whole range, and like I said, when we got up to Mount Washington, the wind really started kicking in. We had stopped. There are three of the AMC has huts up there, and you can go in and get like you can do like work for food or work for stay and stuff, and so like we had grabbed breakfast. We had where we had camped at was about 3 or 4 miles from Mitzpah Hut, so we stopped in there and got breakfast, and then we headed out from Mitzpah and hiked up to the base of Mount Washington, which is where Lake of the Clouds Hut is. So we stopped in there, and they had like a bottomless bowl of soup for $5, and we were like, well, let's put that one to the test.
Right.
And it was really, really good black bean soup. It was phenomenal.
Good filling, hearty, good proteins,
yeah,
good carbohydrates, and everything.
And it was really chilly, so like this really nice, hot, hearty soup really did the job.
And it's, you know, we were talking about when you're hiking, you're putting out this, and you're expelling so much energy, you're only getting about half of it back in. You're always a little hungry, and now you're getting to a point in the mountains where you're always a little cold. Keeping your morale up is definitely something that you need to fight to make sure that you keep on that trail. And it's amazing, just a simple hot plate.
Hot bowl of soup, man.
Can take you from, I'm done, man. I'm done. I'm out. I can't go on anymore. Here, have a bowl of soup.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Absolutely.
It's just those small little comforts, a hot shower or an actual bed or a hot bowl of soup or just something comforting and warming can just turn your spirits around in an instant, and that first bite. So
that's why there are so many people that go out there, particularly people who have done the trail.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you want to check out more of Alan, I'll have a link to his YouTube channel in the description box. Make sure to check him out. He's a wealth of information. He's got a ton of videos. So, thanks again, and I'll see y'all next time.
Hey guys, Jeremy from Lucky At Outdoors, and this is my first ever yellow perch. If you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to our channel and check us out on Facebook and Instagram.